I remember I was even crying because of deep understanding how my life would be like if I continued to fap.
I felt like I had given up all my dreams.
And my life for the sake of an online woman full of botox who earns money by ruining the lives and dreams of men and makes men addicted. I felt as though I had agreed to receive 15 minutes of the highest form of dopamine and then spent remaining 23 hours and 45 minutes of each day experiencing guilt, anger, frustration, dissatisfaction. Everything changed when several methods came to my mind. After applying them, I felt that I had so strong control over all of my actions and I could truly do what I wanted to do and not what my addictions dictated me to do. Sometimes I had a feeling that I don't need any willpower to resist the urges. I want to share these methods with you. But if you open this video and expect that you don't have to put any efforts to quit this slavery, you are wrong. You can stay and watch this video until the end and then put 1 or 2 hours of work once to get the life of freedom. Or you can continue searching for the video that will help you to quit fapping without any efforts, but you will never find this video. Now we are going to discuss all the steps in details, and then in the end you will get the shorter version of the steps so that you can apply all of these steps easily. Don't worry, I'm not gonna sell you anything in the end. Step 1. Change your identity and your attitude. Whenever a thought about porn or woman from the porn or Instagram comes to the mind, many people begin to worship this woman and start to imagine different scenes and contact with her. When you do that, you reinforce the urge, and that leads you all the time to relapsing. Here is what you need to do instead. Whenever a thought about porn or thought about girl from Instagram or desire to fap comes to your mind, you need to start aggressively hating these thoughts in your head. You need to create negative attitude towards them. And it can be hard because these thoughts create a spike of emotions and hormones that make your brain think that this is a possibility to reproduce. But it's not, because it is artificially created circumstances. Because it is unnatural that you can see millions of photos of naked girl at the same time. It is unnatural that you can see all of these girls without real interaction with them. So whenever a thought about girls from Instagram or girls from porn or things like that come to your mind, don't play farther with the thoughts, but start to hate these thoughts aggressively in your head. It's very important to start hating each of these thoughts because we can apply here the balance theory of Heinder. According to the theory, we are less likely to do the things that doesn't maintain our identity, values, and beliefs. So if you create negative attitude towards fapping, then it is very likely that over time you will stop doing this habit and that you will experience more disgust when you do this thing because it doesn't fit your values. That's why it's crucial to start aggressively hating every thought about porn or desire to fap or things like that. And it's crucial to stop doing exceptions like, oh, it's okay to fap after work, or it's okay to fap on the holidays, or it's okay to fap in moderation. No, it's not okay. Avoid this mindset. In addition to that, when I experienced these thoughts, I squeezed the muscles of my eyes, teeth, fists, and ears to block all the emotions that the thought can bring. It might seem funny, but you need to be ready to put everything to get the life of freedom. It is the example of how I would react. Thought about erotic content comes to my mind. I start to aggressively hating this thought, saying in my head something like, it's a crap. It's nonsense. It's forbidden. If these thoughts and urge are very strong, I will squeeze the muscles of my eyes, teeth, fists, and ears. I want to do several remarks about squeezing eyes, teeth, ears, and fists. Probably you will not shake and squeeze all of these muscle groups when you are in public, but it's not a problem because you are not going to fap in public. But when a thought about erotic content comes to your mind when you are in public, just don't let this thought to spread to develop in your head. So just start hating this thought aggressively in your head. Second remark is that reacting this way by squeezing these muscle groups can be tiring both mentally and physically. But you should understand that you are not going to react this way all your life. But the first week, the first 3 to 5 days, when the urges are very strong, I recommend you to react this way. So, conclusion for the first step is to start hating every thought about porn, about girls from porn, Instagram, thoughts about erotic content, desires to fap. Also, squeezing your eyes, ears, teeth, and fists can be helpful to block all the emotions that the urge brings.
By creating this negative attitude and by squeezing these muscles,
I don't allow my mind to perceive positively these thoughts, because positive attitude towards these thoughts leads to playing with these thoughts, and then my mind become captured by these thoughts, what ends up in fapping. Step 2. Convincing your brain and setting laws and rules. As I said in the beginning, now we are discussing all the steps in details, and then you will get a shorter version in the end of all these steps so that you can easily apply them. The second step consists of 3 parts. Why is stopping fapping the best thing I can do, and what will I get if I stop fapping? Why is continuing to fap the worst thing I can do, and what my life would be like if I continue to do this bad habit? Rules and laws. So, the first part, you will need to take a piece of paper, write down this question on this piece of paper, and then write down your answers to this question. Here is the example of my answers. Why is stopping fapping the best thing I can do, and what will I get if I stop fapping?
my stamina will improve, what will help me to dominate on the football pitch. I will be more confident when I speak with girls. It is easier to be grateful during prayers when I don't fap, because my mind is clear. My happiness levels skyrocket. I will have boundless energy for sports and studying. Writing down benefits of no fap related to your goals can be very beneficial. If you don't have a goal, set a goal for yourself. Setting a goal that purposeful and meaningful for you can be a strong motivator to quit this addiction.
This list can be much longer. You need to write benefits that are important for you. By thinking deeply about this question and writing your answers down, your brain will be more aware of these benefits, and your brain will be convinced that the advantage of these benefits outweighs the pleasure of fapping. And when the urge comes up, it will be much easier with less willpower to resist urge. In the end of the video, when you get a shorter version of all these steps, you will need to find 1 or 2 hours to think deeply without panic and rush about this question and about following questions. The second part, you will need to take another piece of paper and write down this question on this piece of paper. Why is continuing to fap the worst thing I can do, and what my life would be like if I continue to do this bad habit?
Example, step 2, part 2. It stops me from achieving my goals. If the habit of fapping is a part of my life, it means that I don't live the life of my dream. My sleep gets worse because I stimulate myself and can't sleep.
This list can be much longer. You just need to write down all the disadvantages that you experience because of fapping. After thinking deeply about these questions and writing your answers down, your brain will be convinced that fapping is the worst thing ever that you can do. And this conviction in your brain will help you enormously to resist your urges. Part 3. Rules and laws. Take another piece of paper or several pieces of paper, because this part is pretty big. In this part, you set rules for yourself that will describe certain actions that you forbid yourself, because these actions very often lead you to relapsing. So when you want to commit this action, your brain will be aware that this action is forbidden for you. It sounds very complex, but I'll give you an example of my rules with explanation. General rules. I don't look at any women and girls of any age on social media, internet, and screens at all. If I accidentally bump into a content with girl women, I immediately turn my gaze away from the screen and close this tap. That's why Jesus said, Matthew verse 5:27-28, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at women lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. With these words, Jesus means that the person who loves to stare at women ignites the flame of lust in his soul, and by making his soul captive of lust, soon begins to fulfill this lust with his body. Moreover, some YouTubers and researchers claim that fapping is boring if you don't have some kind of a video of girl, or photo of girl, or porn, or another stimulator in front of you. I'm not gonna say that it's boring, but what I can say for sure is that if you don't have this stimulator in front of you, like porn or photo of girl or video of girl, then it is much easier to resist urge. So when you have an urge but you block access to stimulation, I mean you don't allow yourself to see a photo of girl or another erotic content, then it is much easier to withstand this urge.
My following rule.
I don't use any objects and don't touch my penis to create the urge. Whenever I have an urge, I don't touch my penis with my hands and anything else. I don't open any porn website in no case. Sometimes the urge can be very strong and you will need to use willpower, but focus not on the urge but on the thought that it is forbidden for you to open porn website or Instagram. So when an urge comes up, say to yourself something like, okay, I have an urge, but I don't have to worry because it is forbidden for me to open porn website or to look at women on the internet anyway. So what I need to do, what I need to focus on is just not to allow myself to open the porn website. You need to understand it is much easier to resist the urge to open the porn website than to resist the urge to masturbate when you have this porn in front of you. So focus on not allowing yourself to open porn website or Instagram. Here also very often the benefits that you have written down will come up in your head and will confront with the urge. And very often hard with effort, but these benefits will help you to win against this urge.
My following rule.
When I speak to a girl or woman in real life, or when I see a girl or woman in real life, I look at her face and not other parts of the body. Like you always aim for the headshots in game, here you also focus on face and head. I don't read any content with sexual or erotic implication. Because when you have forbidden all the known ways for your mind of sexual content, your mind begins to look for other loopholes. TikTok and Instagram. I delete TikTok and Instagram from all my devices. I don't open TikTok and Instagram in any browser. The strength of your urges also depends on how fast you will stop feeding your brain with stimulations. If you decided to quit masturbation, but you still receive every day in your TikTok or Instagram, in your recommendations, the sexual content, then it's going to be very hard for you to quit this addiction and you will probably relapse many times. These stimulations can be not only in a form of sexual content, it can be an attractive woman who tells you about self-improvement. And I recommend you to delete TikTok and Instagram because these social media caused me the greatest number of relapsing in the past. You probably say in your mind, no, I will not delete this social media. But think deeply about this question. Do you earn money with this social media? Do you post content on Instagram and TikTok? If not, you can delete them. You will get an extra hour or even more to work on your dreams, and also you will get fewer stimulations that lead you to masturbation. If you post on this social media, or if you earn money with this social media, whenever an erotic content pop up in your recommendation, turn your gaze immediately from your screen and cover the screen with one hand, while with the other hand tap on the three dots and choose option "I'm not interested in this content" or "Don't recommend me this content anymore." For some people, this kind of a reaction can seem funny, but if you want to quit this addiction with less willpower, you need to do this. Also, my willpower can be strong, and maybe I am able to resist this urge. But this urge, these thoughts about urge, these thoughts about the thoughts about this erotic content then will appear many times in my head and will disturb me during studying, during work, and I will need to use my energy and my focus to resist this urge again. And when I need to watch an educational content where the speaker is an attractive woman, I always turn away my gaze from the screen and always just concentrate on the information. So I just usually listen this kind of information. But when I need to look at the screen, I don't focus on this woman at all, just on the screen, but on the part of the screen where there is the information which is important for me. Don't focus on this woman at all. Or if you post on this social media, don't consume any content of this social media at all. In your list of rules, this rule can sound something like: I don't watch any content on TikTok. I only open TikTok when I need to post the content, and immediately during the opening of the app, I click on the profile tab or post tab. Don't get me wrong, I don't try to say that there is something wrong with women or girls. Not at all. The problem is that porn industry and social media oversaturated with erotic content taught our brain to react with fapping to every girl and woman that we see on the screen.
My following rule.
YouTube. I don't open YouTube at all, either in the browser or app. I only open YouTube to upload a video, and after uploading, I immediately close it. To listen self-improvement content, I use podcasts, for example, Spotify. If you want to continue watching YouTube, you can use alternative rules. But I advise you to choose not the alternative rules, but simple rules. Alternative. If I open YouTube, I don't look at any girls and women of any age on YouTube. I don't watch any content with erotic implication like pranks, videos with erotic thumbnail, and things like that. It is always very important to keep in mind the first rule from the section General Rules. Because if you download Snapchat but you didn't write any rules for the Snapchat, it doesn't mean that you are allowed to watch or look at women or girls on Snapchat. WhatsApp. I don't click and don't open any WhatsApp channels at all. These rules are valid for me, and I begin to follow these rules from 10 a.m. July 7, 2024. I do the challenge and follow these rules for the next 3 days. When I started, I always set 3 days because it is realistic and achievable for your brain. Don't set enormous number of days, something like 7, 10, or even more, because it is harder for your brain. It doesn't mean that after 3 days you will come back to fap. No, you will just prolong these days. When I reached my day 3, I prolonged it with 4 more days. When I reached my day 7, I prolonged it with 10 more days, and etc. Some people follow these rules without marking days because they say that marking days reminds them that they are masturbators. In some way it's true, but you can stop marking the days when you get to the day 50 or something like this. But when you start, it is very, very hard for your brain to maintain all of these rules if you don't have clarity, if you don't have clear, realistic number of days. Because your brain thinks that this suffering will last forever. That's why I recommend setting 3 days in the beginning. And when the urge comes up, you will say to yourself something like, it will not last long. Just endure this 3 days. And then it will become much, much easier. It's very important that you understand that it will not always be so hard to resist the urges. First 3 to 5 days are the hardest, but always keep the thought in mind that it will become easier. Just endure first 3 days. This thought really gives calmness and eases your desire to relapse. Because now, when I have already gone through these first 3 days and even longer period of time, I don't experience so strong urges as I experienced the first 3 days when I started. It was the example of my rules. You don't have to copy all of them. You just need to think deeply and write down your own rules that will help you to avoid different stimulations, social media, websites, and moments that lead you to relapsing. Of course, take some rules from my list that you consider that they are relevant to you, especially rules number 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think they're relevant to anyone who wants to quit this addiction. After writing down all these rules, when you get desire to open some kind of a stimulation, for example, porn, the thoughts in your head will appear that it is forbidden, and it will be much easier to take more controlled and more reasonable decision. These rules will help you to endure urges with less willpower because they create mental barrier that doesn't allow you to open stimulations. But if I say with less willpower, it doesn't mean that you don't have to fight against the urges. It doesn't mean that you don't have to fight against the desire to open the porn website or another stimulation. Method 3. I know several people who got cured from different addictions by repenting and by praying to Jesus, by praying to God for forgiveness. When you pray, do it with trust. States and conditions to avoid. Endless scrolling cycle. Constant scrolling leads to relapsing because when you scroll, your brain anticipates a reward but doesn't get it in the end. And this anticipation of reward keeps you in this endless scrolling cycle. But after 1 hour of scrolling, your brain wants higher form of dopamine because scrolling doesn't give you the same pleasurable feeling as it was the first 10 minutes, and your brain begins to seek for the higher form of reward. And when you see erotic content, you continue to watch this trash further. And just watching erotic content after 5 minutes or 10 minutes doesn't satisfy your brain, and your brain begins to crave for even higher form of reward, and you begin the act of fapping. But after this act, you end up in frustration, dissatisfaction, anger, guilt, and really awful day. Don't overestimate yourself. When you reach day 7 or beyond, you start to experience all the benefits of NoFap. You have boundless energy for sport and studying. You have enormous confidence like you never had before in your life. Your level of happiness skyrocket. You feel unstoppable. However, during this period, many guys overestimate themselves and believe that they have overcome their addiction and begin again to stare at girls and women on social media while they scroll, and that leads to relapsing. So try to avoid this state and don't overestimate yourself when you get to a day 7 or beyond, when you experience all these benefits. So enjoy the benefits, but don't overestimate and don't go back to your old bad habits that cause relapsing. Avoid processed food and food with a lot of sugar as much as possible, because after eating this food, the first 30 minutes you feel overexcited, but also you can start to behave impulsively and start to experience strong urges because of fast sugar increase in your blood. But 30 minutes later, you will experience tiredness and no clarity in your brain. And it can happen that you will desire to numb this feeling of tiredness and no clarity with fapping. The first 3 days, when you are confronted with the most difficult urges, sometimes it will be so hard to focus on your studying or work because you will need to use a lot of brain effort and brain power to withstand the urge. So don't become angry the first 3 days of no fap if you are not very productive. You need to do this sacrifice because after 3 days you will have even better focus and even clearer mind. Supplementary methods. Cold environment. So you can set a heating system in your room to a lower level, or you can take a cold shower to prevent the urge or to make the urge weaker. Sport. After hard training, when you are very, very tired, you experience less urges and you are less likely to fap. Day full of activities outside home. For example, I wake up at 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. I study, then I have school from 10:30 a.m. till 4 p.m. Then next 2 hours I study in the library. After studying in the library, I go to the training. Then after training, I go immediately home and I go immediately to bed. During that day, it's very unlikely that I will fap because from 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. I mostly focus on studying, and then the rest of my day I just spend outside home. If you can organize your first 3 days of NoFap in such a way that the most of the time you will spend outside your home, it will really give you an enormous head start. As I promised at the beginning, I give you a shorter version of all these steps so that you can apply them easily. If you don't apply them, it means you have wasted a lot of time and will waste even more time looking for easier solution and will never find it. So go through every step of slide number 1 gradually and answer the questions where required. You will also see the examples of my answers on the next slides, but it is not compulsory to read every example. Your main focus should be on the slide number 1. And I advise you to read examples on the slide number 4 and number 5, focusing and paying attention to the phrases in red, because these phrases will help you to think the right way when you are confronted with urges. Take the screenshot of each slide or pause the video on each slide. That's what helped me to quit this addiction. Write down in the comments your results, and I wish you to quit this slavery immediately.